Welcome, everyone, to another episode of On the Air with Tim and Ken. Ken, Memorial Day weekend. It's good to see you.
Tim, great to be back for another episode.
Yeah, it's exciting. So we haven't been together for a while. I just mentioned it is Memorial Day weekend, so I just want to remember what it's all about. We wouldn't be here without what's happened with our veterans and their families over many decades. So let's remember all the veterans that have sacrificed and their families that have also sacrificed on this Memorial Day weekend, because what we're doing here is just for fun, and we wouldn't be here otherwise.
I agree with you, Tim. It does go unnoticed sometimes, and we really need to remember everybody.
Yeah. So happy Memorial Day, everybody. And our disclaimer. First of all, welcome everybody for joining us again. We appreciate all the viewers and all the feedback we've had. Most of it's been positive, and the negative stuff, like I said, we'll take under advisement, but it's been good. We're having a lot of fun. So as far as our disclaimer goes, we talk about this every time real quick. What Ken and I do here, as you know, if you watched it a little bit, we primarily focus on sports and business and where they intersect. Now, I can't predict a sports outcome or a business outcome, so I certainly can't predict combining them together and predicting the future outcome of any of them. So that's my disclaimer. That's our disclaimer. Don't rely on us for a wager or an investment. Just sit back, have fun. We want to give you something to think about. We don't want to take away from your enjoyment of sports, but we want to just cross that intersection with sports and business. So
I agree. I can't predict anything either, but again, we're having fun doing this, and we do appreciate everybody that tunes in and watches.
Yep. So today what we're going to do, we've got a few things to touch on. It's going to be really quite different and interesting, I think. We'll do a few footnotes to clean up a few things we've already talked about and add a little to it. And then we're going to get into in our by the numbers segment. We're going to go across the pond, get into some women's sports overseas. That'll be interesting. And we're going to talk about women's sports back in the local USA. So we got a lot going on again, as usual. It's a lot of fun. So, Ken, I want to just start with you. And you mentioned to me you wanted to follow up on some comments or some commentary that we had last time regarding our friend Bill Belichick. It's coming up to June 1st. He's got a big contract date, apparently a date that's important. So walk us through that again.
Yeah, so I mentioned on the last show that, there's a big date coming up June 1st on the Bill Belichick contract. Of course, I analyzed it wrong. I had the buyout coming on June 1st. There is a buyout that's being reduced from 10 million to 1 million. I originally thought it was UNC's option for the buyout, but it really is Coach Belichick's option. And the reason that UNC put that clause in there was to try to prevent him from tampering with NFL teams. So if Bill Belichick wanted out, his option to buy out is from 10 million to 1 on June 1st, not UNC. UNC is on the hook for the first 3 years and $30 million of a 5-year contract. Some additional information that came up this past week, which probably makes us all a moot point, is UNC has announced that they have completely sold out their season tickets allotment for the year, which they did not meet last year. The season ticket allotment is 20,000 tickets, and they increased the prices from about 25% from last year. So not only did they sell out, they sold out at a 25% increase, which means the alumni, the fans, they're all in on Coach Belichick. So I would think that this is probably going to be, from this perspective, a moot point, unless for some reason, the coach wants out.
It's going to be exciting. Here we are at Memorial Day weekend. We're talking about UNC college football, and we're excited to see how Coach Belichick does. And he's a genius, and he's a football savant. So see what he does with that team, the young recruits. It's going to be. He's a disciplinarian, but he's got a lot of wisdom, and he knows how to handle these. I think he's going to know how to get this team ready for an exciting season. And it sounds like the alumni and the school's all excited. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be very exciting, and interesting, and hopefully the off-field stuff stays at a minimal so we can all enjoy the on-field stuff.
That's right. Please. Yeah. So moving along, we saw a very interesting, entertaining race at the Preakness Stakes down at PIMCO Fortunately, it was a fascinating race. If you took 2 minutes out of your life to watch it, and if you didn't take 2 minutes and watch it, I won't talk about it, but it was fascinating. And but what I wanted to follow up on that was the both at PIMCO and at Belmont, where the Belmont Stakes are normally held in New York. They're still going under renovations there, like they are. They're going to shut down the PIMCO track and rebuild it. My point is, they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars at both racetracks to refurbish, rebuild, all of the above, hundreds of millions of dollars. Incredible commitment going forward. So they say if they see a future with horse racing that many people don't see. And what I also found interesting on that is that these racetracks aren't directly tied to a casino. I don't believe there's a casino there. I don't know really how they're fully funded, but they're freestanding. They're making a huge commitment, so that's exciting. And they recently completed, I think a year and a half ago, a similar big expansion of my favorite place, Saratoga. And Saratoga is going to host the Belmont Stakes. I talk about that a lot. It's coming up. So again, go up. If you've never gone to a racetrack, this is the one to go to. You're going to see the horses up close. You can get down to the rail. I guarantee it. Don't go on Travis Stakes Day. Go on an off day. Get a nice seat in the grandstand under the roof. If it rains, you're covered. If it's sunny, you're covered. Walk around. You're going to see people, jockeys, horses. It's a very fair carnival experience, even if you don't know the first thing about horse racing. If you go there and have a bad time, tell me why. And if you had a good time, I want to hear from you again. So that's enough for the horse racing.
Tim, you've been up there, and there's just so much else up to do during the summer up there in that area. So it's not just like,
No.
or maybe like during the racetracks where you're looking for a casino, right? Like there's Lake George, as we mentioned, there's Cronin's if you want to go play golf, and plus it's a beautiful area.
It's beautiful, especially that time of year. If you go up this summer, if you're fortunate enough to get a week out of work and take your family, you go up, just spend one day at the racetrack. Don't spend the week. This, like Ken said, there's plenty of golf. It's very affordable up there compared to a lot of things. It's a car drive away from New York or Boston. So if you've never been, try it once. See how you do. Go to Lake George, check it out. Go to Lake Placid, spend a week. You'll find something you like. There's something for everybody. There's amusement park. There's all of them. So go up there and have fun and let us know how you enjoy it. So
I noticed that there was one thing that came out, with these stadiums being improved and everything. The USTA announced that they're going to do where the U.S. Open tennis is played in New York, that they're going to do $800 million in renovations between now and 2027.
Wow.
And here's the most interesting thing to me. They're self-funding it.
Wow.
They're self-funding this. They're putting in luxury boxes. They're improving parking. It's not going to interfere with any of the play, so it's not like they're going to move the U.S. Open.
That's great.
But that they're going to be able to do all this and self-fund it is just an incredible commitment. To New York City, which gets a lot of the benefit from the U.S. Open being there.
No, that's refreshing, because when we spoke a few weeks ago about the NFL stadiums, and not just NFL, but all these stadiums being built, and how a lot of it was a quote unquote partnership with the municipality or whoever, big numbers, but there was always that partnership, and we a little bit skeptical about how all that should work. But it's great to hear it's self-funded. That's a true commitment. They're going to deliver a great product and on time, because they wouldn't be putting that money in if they didn't think otherwise. They didn't.
Yeah, I agree.
So excellent. Good update. All right. So I want to move to our features, talking about the women's sports, go across the pond. And Ken and I both saw a segment on CNBC's Squawk Box. It appeared on the morning of May 15th. Happened to be watching it. And the gentleman, I'm looking at my notes. I don't really know the gentleman or know of him, obviously. His name is Alexis Ohanian. Apparently, he's a very famous guy. He's a co-founder of Reddit. He was also one of the first bought into the TGL Golf League. I'm not overly familiar with that golf league. That's kind of a indoor golf league that's gone on, and he's been involved in a lot of things. He also has a superstar wife, phenomenal tennis player. You've all heard of Serena Williams. That's his bride. I didn't know anything about this man, but he came on CNBC that morning, and what he was talking about was that he's buying into the Chelsea Women's Football Club, and he's going to be a minority owner, but a but making a big commitment there. He's buying a 10% stake. And what's really fascinating is based on the valuation of his investment, it's about a $265 million valuation. And he thinks that in the not too distant future, and I think his horizon is generally from the comments he made was a 10-year look, that you're going to see women's sports teams being valued in the billions. So Ken, I can't get my head around millions or billions, but help me out with some of these numbers.
It was a really, everybody should go watch the feature. It was excellent. They talk about things in detail and with a lot more knowledge than Tim and I have been talking about. We have brought up some of these things is, where the future revenue is growing with coming with, the challenges from, traditional TV. And he really believes in the women's sports. He owns Angel Fire, which is part of the women's soccer league. He totally believes that all women's sports are, the valuations are low. And he points to social media followings. And, we've talked a little bit about that with the WNBA, kind of with the Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. It's going to be interesting, and then the I don't know who the broadcaster was, but he challenges them a little bit on where's the revenue coming from?
Right.
Because that's what we ask, like how are you going to charge for TikTok, right? How are you going to charge for Instagram? Like, where are these hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue going to come from that are going to, suffice all these sport leagues? So it really was it's about 8 minutes long. It's really interesting. They're both highly educated on it. And, like I said, they'll explain it a lot better than we're trying to recap it.
Right.
I dealing with younger people, I can't see how you're going to be able to pass on, billions of dollars of revenue to them. You're not gonna be able to do it, $1, $2, $3 at a time. I know ESPN's coming out with a new streaming service where they're trying to repackage their cable TV channels, and they're going to charge them $29.99 a month, and it'll be interesting to see how that does. But I think that'll be a test of,
Yep.
will people pay for streaming at that kind of revenue?
He did talk about the valuations and how he thinks the numbers might get there. And like you said, he's really a social media guy, and that's by his own words. But he said that the Chelsea Women's Football Club has 4 million social media followers, and that's really what was a big part of his decision making on that. And he talked about AI in the future. He says, look, he realizes that TV deals take time to build up and get the revenue in. By time, he referred to a 10-year time frame. But he said with social media in the younger generation and AI, he sees the growth in the revenue from maybe not watching the entire game on a social media platform, but maybe a highlight. And then maybe an enhancement through AI. You might get a better experience through AI. And he talks about that a little bit. So you'll get more details on what his view of AI could do to sports. And he talked about there's no replacement for sports. It's a human interest story. So they're not trying to make it robotic, because robotic sports is not interesting to a lot of, it's not interesting to me, but, it wouldn't get you going, right? So he touches on that. So he thinks it's a long-term play. He sees the social media followers. Whether or not they can monetize it, we don't know yet. But he's going to try, and he believes it. He's been successful with other platforms. And like Ken said, with this $29.95 that ESPN's rolling out, it's probably not something that I'm going to be doing because I still have other ways to get highlights and things like that. But they test the market first, and they'll see where it goes, and they'll calibrate it to monetize it somehow. And I think the younger generation may be pushing in that direction. That's what they like. They seem to like all that.
Excuse me.
So we'll see how.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. Like, they talk about TikTok and Instagram, right? My understanding is, and I'm not in any of those platforms, that they're free services. And how are you going to monetize that, right? And how are you going to be able to monetize that where you're going to get those 4 million Chelsea viewers to want to pay something to watch highlights, most of the people today watch stuff on their phones, right? You get to watch a full game on your phone or a play.
Right.
I don't. I think that's the challenge. And um, but speaking of investments, Mark Cuban has come out and said he's going to start a sports private equity group and invest $750 million in these undervalued sport franchises. So, these are really smart guys. They're putting their money where their mouth is.
There's a huge
Um,
explosion going on in sports investment, big investment. I don't know what the catalyst is. Maybe it's the social media, the AI, all of the above. Maybe some other investments have gone a little stale, whether it's the car industry or whatever, and they're kind of plateaued for a while. But they see a future in sports, and maybe it's just the global reach of all of it. But on a side note, I'm really happy to hear that the women's sports people are really investing in it. They believe in it. I always say they're phenomenal athletes. They need more recognition. I think these platforms can, I don't know if the platforms, but I think the leagues are certainly worthwhile to a sports fan like myself to participate by watching. And they just need that financial commitment, whether it's through, the contracts with the ESPNs or the ABCs or phone based or whatever it comes. I'm happy to see that because let's face it, it's phenomenal athletes doing phenomenal things, and I'm happy to see it's growing.
yeah, I mean, they've always been incredible athletes. It's a challenge to get recognition. You and I have talked offline about, specifically the WNBA,
Yes.
right? And their season, right? And their
Yeah.
season
Yeah.
runs now through, September 15th with another month for playoffs. And it's not really a traditional basketball season to us. Traditional basketball season for us growing up has always been the fall through the winter. And, you know, would they benefit by maybe looking into, changing their season?
Yeah. Look
Um,
at the competition. Like you
February
said.
always seems to be the dead month in sports, except for the Super Bowl, which is one Sunday. You know, could they rearrange their season so that their playoffs are in the month of February, right? Where maybe they're having, yeah, there's NBA going on and NHL, but it's the middle of the season. No, the interest really hasn't peaked up yet. Could they, move it and start maybe in October their season
Mhm.
and finish their season in January and then kind of have the month to themselves because there's nothing like playoffs in sports. I don't care
Right.
what sport you are, March Madness is March Madness because it's playoffs, and the
Right.
playoffs dictate, where the ratings really are. And, then you have the traditional basketball season for the WNBA with the month of February being their playoffs. I mean, I'm sure they've all looked into this, but it seems to us like,
They should
I
have
know you got
asked.
some thoughts on it too.
Nobody asked us, but they're smarter than us. But like you're right. I was looking at, we talked about the schedule of the WNBA, and I just made some quick notes here. I'm thinking this is just a partial of what's going on this time of year. They just opened their season. You got the NBA playoffs, you got NHL playoffs, you got golf, PGA, and regular golf. You got NCAA sporting events. Near me, the lacrosse finals are going on, and there's NCAA finals all over the country right now. You got NFL schedule release. You got NBA draft lottery. You got baseball. You got summer vacation. You got me yapping about horse racing. There's so many other things to draw you away from the WNBA because we haven't been geared towards basketball this time of year. And Ken, your idea about if you started in October, November, and had your playoffs run, and they could wind up in February, you know, well, February is kind of a slow month, other than that one big event, the Super Bowl, and that's only really that one evening. And especially where the NBA owns most of the WNBA, they've already got these beautiful stadiums. You've already got basketball fans. I don't know why they don't kind of do a double header. You got a game at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock on a weekend afternoon. If you want to have the WNBA play at noontime or TV, just you got people that like basketball, and I don't know if they're missing the mark. They haven't asked us, but they're smarter than us, so I'm sure they've looked at it. But I'd like to hear why they haven't, from them, why they haven't really looked at
Yeah,
that time.
it's the challenges, right? Like, who wants to be inside an arena in the middle of July? I mean, look at they're extremely talented. We talked, they're great athletes, but the last place anybody wants to be in the middle of July when it's 80 degrees outside is inside an arena on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
Um,
Why put yourself
it's
up against all that resistance with other sports in the time of year? Why not take the path of easier resistance? It's the natural season for us. It's basketball season, right? And then you segue right into March Madness. It would be a beautiful thing.
I think it would be great, and currently the WNBA is got that one player who's a difference maker from the media side in Caitlin Clark, right?
Yeah.
It happens, once in a while, right? The NBA has LeBron, right? Golf had Tiger, right? Where the non-traditional sports person is going to turn in to watch that
Right.
person or team play.
Right.
And currently for the WNBA, they finally have one. They have a lot of great players, and she's probably not even the best player in the league, but right now she's getting the most recognition, and people are turning in just to watch her play. And, why not ride that success?
Give it a
And
shot.
granted, it would be a drastic move, right? But it would also be a respectful move. Like, we're not just going to jam you into the summer. You belong during what I think most fans think is basketball season,
Prime
which
time.
is, the fall to the winter, and
Yep.
um,
Yeah, I
so
agree.
again, we're not we're not investing, and nobody asked us, but it seems to us like it's totally worth looking into, and that there is that gap in February for that we think would make total sense where they could really own the month.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't think they're listening to us, but they're smarter
No,
people and they know what they're doing. But just our thoughts on it. And really, you were the one that talked about the scheduling, and you kind of got me going on it. And you've convinced me it's worth a shot. But I want to hear why they haven't done it. But you also brought up the WNBA on a different note as far as some things going on, and I think the Mohegan Sun team is moving or
yeah,
being
there's
sold.
a lot of movement in the franchises of all sports, really. And the Connecticut Sun, which is a WNBA franchise at the Mohegan Sun Arena, at the Mohegan Sun Casino, is evaluating whether they're either going to look for new investors or possibly sell the team. And what you're seeing a lot of in the WNBA world is, as there's this future growth coming, and we talked about the media deals, the new media deals, which I believe start next year in a prior episode, that the teams are trying to get practice facilities that are dedicated for their teams, and they don't have that at the Mohegan Sun. They're totally sharing facilities with the casino and the
Yep.
tribe and
Yep.
whatever's going on there. So they definitely need a cash influx. And whether they do that by taking on investors, or they are saying if this team does happen to get sold, it'll probably be relocated. Um, we talked earlier on about the Chelsea valuation at 265 million. The New York Liberty came and sold a partial interest at a valuation of 450 million. I mean, it's the
That was
highest.
a public offering. They sold a
Yeah,
small amount of shares were offered in the value based on that.
highest valuation of a women's sports, and I mean, again, a monster number. For I know they're coming off, like the Celtics coming off an NBA victory, a WNBA championship, and we have thoughts on that. We'll probably won't have to save for our next podcast on the
Well,
Celtics. But again, they part of that proceeds they plan to use for a new practice facility dedicated just for their team. The San Francisco 49ers are selling a partial interest, and they valued their team at 8.5 billion. So there's humongous dollars out there. People are investing large dollars. Besides Mark Cuban, I think you said Lamar Jackson's got an investment group going.
that's right.
You had done some research on a Lamar Jackson investment group.
Yeah.
Um,
We'll get into all that down the road, but there's so much money flying into these sports franchises right now. They see the future of of the streaming, how that plays out, AI and other marketing opportunities. They see it. They're going to make it happen. It may change the way you view sports, hopefully for the better. But they all agree sports is not going away. It's a human thing. We all love it. We all enjoy it. We all appreciate it. So they're just doubling and tripling down on the investment, and we'll see where it goes. I'm happy to see all that happening. It's just great stuff. So
Yeah, I'm going to be continually interested to see how can they convert, the younger people that are not used to paying for content to get them. I mean, these are massive dollars that they're expecting these people to
Yeah.
come, the people to pay for. And can they convert, a TikTok user, Instagram user to a paying content, and at what dollar amount?
Right.
Um,
Right.
I have a 24-year-old nephew. I don't think he's going to be paying for content. So anytime soon, they're not used to it.
Right.
And he's glued to his phone. So um, I think that's to watch and be
That'll be
interesting
the
to see.
challenge. That'll be because that's the future of the young people, and see if they're going to be ready to pay for that. I'll call it a streaming service. It might be something different, but it's something like that. In my world, it's like a streaming service. But basically, you're looking at your phone or some other device to get some watching a game or a part of a game or a highlight or something. And that
I
I
think
think,
the ESPN going to a $29.99 platform, with incredible content will be an interesting test to see
yes.
because that's what they're banking on. They're banking on the people that are glued to their iPads or their phones being the ones to invest in that. And
So the good news is
see how
sports
that
is not
goes.
going away. It's just
Not
gonna
going
be.
away.
Well, you might have to pay for it a little more, but it's going to be there. It's going to be round the clock if it's not already. It's going to be available. Just got to keep paying for it somehow and watch that. I'm getting the flag here. I guess we're out of time.
Yeah. We got one quick. Quinnipiac baseball is still playing.
Excellent.
They're in the middle of the MAC tournament. They may be playing as we're recording right now. They are it's double elimination. They've won a couple. They lost a game yesterday. They need to win two today to
Okay.
get to the MAC finals. And if they were to win the MAC finals tomorrow, then they get the automatic bid. So we'll keep an eye on that.
Good luck,
And we
guys. Get
wish
it
them good
done.
luck. Get it done.
Get it done. Keep it going. Ken, thanks again. Great to see you. Enjoy Memorial Day weekend.
Thanks, Tim. You too. It's been great to be back together.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a nice weekend. Take care.